Hey, welcome to a special edition of Gibbs in the Bank. I'm Kevin Noon, joined by Marc Givler and Bill Greene. It's not my show, so I'm not going to take the lead here. I'm going to hand the reins over to Marc. National Signing Day is here, and Marc and Bill have all of their thoughts.
Yes, another signing day, pretty much in the books here. I know they have some other guys out there that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes that aren't officially uh, decided yet. But Bill, I think to start this off, I guess before we get to questions, do you want to just kind of go through the class here and maybe take a position by position look at things and then open it up for questions? I think probably be a good way to go here. So we'll start. We'll start with quarterback. I mean, obviously Devin Brown, late addition. Bill, I mean, your thoughts on just kind of how important I guess that was, especially knowing what we know now with everything that's happened with Quinn Ewers and Jack Miller. How important it was to get someone like Devin Brown.
Yeah, it's real important. I mean, like I wrote in my article today, my summary, you could argue that last year Ohio State had the best quarterback room in college football, and you lose Ewers and Jack Miller, but you add Devin Brown, and with the three left, I think you can argue that they're going to have the best quarterback room in college football next year too. So Devin Brown was gigantic. I think they wanted Drew Aller first. But Devin's close to Drew. There's not a big gap between those two guys, I don't think. This is not like, you're dredging up Stephen Collier or something like Tristan Wall, something like that. I mean, Devin Brown's big time. I mean, so this was huge for Ryan Day to kind of keep that QB pipeline rolling.
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit surprising they were kind of able to pull this off, just because they're getting in on him so late, and there's no real tie there to Ohio State or the state of Ohio. I mean, just kind of a kid who's from Arizona, was playing in Utah. I mean, I guess there was a connection there, I guess indirectly with Joe Germain, who he worked with a little bit early in his career. But yeah, just kind of a huge pickup. I think one of the biggest pickups in this class, just because of everything that's been going on in that quarterback room. And it's just the new reality that you're going to have to go get a guy like that, pretty much every year, and hope that you can keep them in the room as long as possible before the portal happens. But yeah, that was a huge one. And we'll move on to running back. And some of these positions they're quick and easy, short and sweet. Dallin Hayden,
Right, right.
they had maybe three guys they were looking at running back. They got Dallin Hayden, and that was that. Obviously, I've seen some Master T comparisons on the board. I mean, how do you kind of view Dallin Hayden? I guess, is he more of like maybe a Master Teague as like a depth role guy who can be your number two, or do you view him more as a potential lead back?
No, I think he's good, and I think he's a depth guy. I think now, he may come in next year and beat everybody out and rush for 1,500 yards too. So it's easy for me to say that, but my feeling is he's kind of a bridge guy. I think they want to take two in the next class. I think they're in great shape for Richard Young. So we'll see. I mean, Dallin Hayden is a really, really good football player, and I think he fits with what they want. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's Trey Henderson, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's Richard Young either. But I think he's a good football player.
Yeah, I think coming out, I would probably have him somewhere between Master Teague and the Trey Henderson, Richard Youngs of the world. I think he's a better prospect than Master Teague was coming out of high school, but he's also, I don't think I don't have him as like a 5-star guy, although I'm kind of picky on my 5-star running backs anyway. So, but I do think
Yeah.
he's a really good back. And think certainly he'll be capable of giving them some good minutes at some point down the road. We'll see how that's going to be something to watch, and maybe that's a different show, different episode. But just kind of seeing how the running back room plays out here this winter. Is Evan Pryor still around? Is my what does Mine Williams do? What is Marcus Crowley? Like what's the room look like in May? That's going to be an interesting thing, I think, to seeing how quick Dallin Hayden get on the field. Wide receivers, your fellow Stark Countyan Brian Hartline put together another great class. You know, of the guys they signed, is there a guy that, you know, you think maybe gets on the field earlier, or, you know, just kind of how do you think maybe this group stacks up with what Heartline's been putting together?
I really can't. I mean, I can't separate them. People ask me, I think, pretty often in the chats, like, how do you rank these 4 wide receivers? And I might rank, you know, Burton higher today, and then tomorrow ask me in my chat, I might tell you Gray's is better. They're 4 studs. They're all 4 potential number ones. Okay, they match up with Igbuka and Harrison and Jackson Smith, Njigba and Fleming. This is just the Heartline assembly line rolls on. I mean, these are the crown jewels. If you're looking at a position group that matches up anywhere in America, it's wide receiver. I mean, I don't know who tops this group. So, and it's, you know, it's 3 years in a row now for Heartline to just kill this position group. So, yeah, A++ with these guys. And, you know, if you ask me to rank them 1 through 4, I might have a different ranking. And somebody might be 1 today and 4 tomorrow. They're all potential number ones.
Yeah, I saw a lot of these guys over the summer into the fall, but man, there's something about Keon Gray's, and I know he's not the highest ranked of the group, and certainly wasn't early on, at least. I know he really has shot up the rankings since, but there's a smoothness there. I guess, I know Olave's a comparison. I think that's probably a decent comparison in terms of the way he plays the game, but he's got a little bit of like a Jackson Smith and Jigba to him, that he can kind of play in the slot. He's maybe not a 4-3 guy, but yet no one ever seems to be able to cover him. There's a lot of good things there. He catches the ball, you know, really well. And he's one of those guys who, like Jackson Smith and Jigba, seem to just continually get better. And just, you know, to kind of take his game up a notch every few months, you know, whether it was, you know, going from 7-on-7 circuit to the opening to the season, you know, just kind of continual progression throughout, you know, maybe the last 2 years of his high school career. So I look at Keon Gray as someone who we're going to look back on and be like, yeah, he should have been maybe a little more hyped. You know, we can throw Bennett Christian there. I combine with just one tight end. We'll you know, for me, you know, with Bennett, you know, is he flashy? Is he, you know, is he Gronk? Is he, you know, George Kittle? No, but could he be Luke Farrell? I definitely think so. And, you know, Luke Farrell's off to a pretty nice start in Jacksonville, doing better than I think people thought he would as a rookie. So I think, you know, I know it drives people nuts about the tight end position in Ohio State. They're just not going to throw the ball 50 times to a tight end. So I think taking someone like Bennett Christian makes some sense. But, you know, your thoughts on Bennett, Bill?
He's all right. I mean, I think he fits with, you know, what they've been recruiting other than Ruckert. This is the kind of guy they usually get every year. Now, the interesting thing to me is that they did have 2 tight ends committed at one point. Then it dropped down to just Bennett, but recently, you know, they went after Austin Stogner from Oklahoma. So do they look and see who didn't sign, you know, through this Friday? And do they still look, or do they go back into the portal, you know, to try to grab a second tight end? So I think that's something to really watch for. There's definitely room to add guys. So we'll see what happens here. But I won't be shocked if another tight end name pops up here in the next week, months, whatever.
Yeah, I think they're probably going to go portal first if they can. I think they want a guy to help them, you know, in 2022. Like, now. I think they want a guy to help them now.
Yes.
And if that's a 1-year rental, that's fine. And just kind of bridge the gap until, you know, they can kind of get G. Scott, continue to get up to speed, and Bennett Christian and Sam Hart and those guys can be ready. But it'll be interesting, yeah, if they go for a February guy. My instinct is that if they wanted to go in a direction like that, they probably would have been after the Ohio guys harder in this class. You know, they had the kid that worked out of camp, and you know, nothing ever really came of that, and it just you know, I think that they will probably go portal at that position if they can. All right, everyone's favorite topic now, offensive line. Here we go. Carson Hinsman, I woke up to a text about 6 a.m. this morning from Carson. He said he wasn't going to sign today, but that he was hoping to come to a decision and going to be able to sign by Friday. Good or bad that this is such a tough decision for him, because clearly he just doesn't know. If he knew,
Right.
he would have signed today. I don't think
Right.
he's delaying for drama right now. So is that good or bad for Ohio State that maybe he's shaky right now on what he wants to do?
There's no way to know. I mean, the kid is torn 50-50. I think, he's not a game player. This is not Travis Hunter looking to throw a few hats on the ground and make a splash. He's torn. He doesn't know, and I don't know why he was going to rush this and try to get it done by Friday. We watched Keontae Goodwin do that today. That kid was obviously torn, and, he wanted to do it on signing day on 24/7. So he made his decision, but man, that was a rush. That was a rush deal. I hate to see kids do that. My personal feeling is the longer this goes, I think it becomes easier to just go to Wisconsin. But that's a guess. Who knows what Carson's thinking? I mean, the only thing I would say, he's not a game player. He's not doing this for effect. This is not Terrell Pryor or Travis Hunter. He's torn. So we'll see. I know they need him. You know what I mean? You've got 3 signed right now, and not good enough. Not good enough in terms of quality or quantity. So, if you would have asked Ryan Day back in February or March, hey, you're going to sign Tishabola, Fitzpatrick, and Avery Henry on signing day, I don't think he'd have been too thrilled.
Yeah, he definitely wouldn't have wanted to be sitting here with 3 offensive line commitments and, some guys obviously missing from this class that they were in good shape for at one point or another. And we've kind of gone through this a few years in a row now with this. And, what happens if, they don't get Hinsman? I mean, that to me is the thing here. What happens if they don't get Hinsman on, let's say he announces somewhere on Friday, obviously it would be Wisconsin if it's not Ohio State. Where do they go? I mean,
well, they're trying to get the Frazier kid from FIU, and that kid's young. That, Kevin and I were talking about that the other day. That kid's got a ton of eligibility left. You could almost look at him as, someone for this class. And then, you scour who didn't sign. And maybe you just throw a dart at the one you think is the best. Although I kind of felt they did that with Avery Henry. So I don't know. You know what I mean? This is, they should be used to it because they go through this every year. But they need Carson Hinsman on one hand, I'll say that. And on the other hand, it's like he's an inside player and they need tackles. So I don't know that Carson Hinsman really, moves the needle. It's not Tyler Booker. It's not Keontae Goodwin. It's not Zach Rice. It's not Ernest Greene. So we'll see, Mark. But, I thought they needed 5 in this class, and 4 was the least you could take. So, we'll see where this goes. I can't believe they'll end up with just these 3.
No, they'll definitely have to figure something out. If Hinsman goes. Now, we'll find out, I think, on January 8th where Ernest Greene is going. Again, I don't think that's going to be Ohio State.
No,
that being said,
I think they're out.
He signed today is what I was told with someone. So
yeah,
we'll see where that goes on the 8th. I have a feeling it's going to be somewhere in the SEC.
Yes.
But we'll see what he decides there. That was a tough one for them. Look, we're not super optimistic about what they've done here on the offensive line yet. I think Hinsman would change that a little bit for me. But I agree they would still need another tackle somewhere along the way. But we'll see what happens there. Moving over to the defensive side of the ball, that's going to be the most intrigue here down the stretch is, they got Caden Curry yesterday. So they've got Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson, 2 great prospects. Bill, you're very connected in South Florida. What are your thoughts on Jackson and kind of what are people down there saying about him, maybe particularly this year versus last year? Because I think there were people who kind of maybe had some question marks about him last year. He seems to be a guy that, from everything I've seen and heard, got a lot better this year. Have you been hearing that? And kind of what's your takeaway with him?
Yeah, absolutely. My guys love Kenyatta Jackson. And I think, a year ago or even 6 months ago, I think my guys thought higher of Ryan Turner, where today they're kind of backed off a little bit of that, where they weren't that high on Kenyatta, and now they're super high on Kenyatta. They thought he took a huge leap this year. And I agree. The film I watched, I mean, he's a different player from what he was last year. So I really like Kenyatta Jackson a lot. And then Caden Curry is a guy you've seen more than I've seen. But everything I have seen of that kid, I love that kid. I mean, I think Caden Curry has a chance to be, an all Big Ten player at Ohio State, whether that's as a strong side D end or he moves inside as the quick tackle. I just like Caden Curry a lot, and I thought that was a huge win. And I kind of think, like a lot of Ohio State fans, glossed over Caden Curry when the news came through today about Terrence Brooks, even though they're not even connected at all. But I don't think Caden Curry was celebrated enough for how good he is. And then I do think Ohio State, I know, everybody's freaked out about NIL, but I still think Ohio State's going to get Amari Abor over Texas, and I think they're going to get Hero Kanu as well. And I think, Kristen Miller, man, he's a nut job that could do anything. But regardless, I think when we come back in February and we do this again, when everybody's signed, I think people are going to be really, really happy about the OSU D-line group. I think it's going to be a special group, just like last year was.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see what Christian Miller ends up doing. He put that tweet out this morning. It was a recruiting graphic from Ohio State with Antoine Jackson on it.
You hated to see that.
And I was like, people were asking me, is that a commitment graphic? I'm like, no. I checked with his coach. I said, no. He's not announcing today. And
he plays more games than Milton Bradley. He plays more games than Milton Bradley.
That graphic was probably "I'm not going to Ohio State" graphic. That you didn't want to see that. There's no way you wanted to see him tweeting your graphic out today. You did not want that if you're Ohio State.
That reminded me. I was watching. I think we both know Andrew Bone covers Alabama, and he was tweeted out a picture from Curtis Perry's announcement today, and there was no Alabama hat on the table. And Andrew Bone tweeted out, "Well, now I feel even better about Alabama's chances." There was no. I said something about maybe he's going to bring a live elephant or something into the room. But
Mark, when I was at Scout.com, we did a show from New York City. The last year we were at Scout. And we did a question and answer just like this is. And someone asked me a question. Hey, Torrance Gibson just took down all his Ohio State stuff off his Twitter account. What does it mean, Bill? And I said, it means he's definitely coming to Ohio State. Without question, that one's over. So you got to love the games.
Yeah. So good news for Georgia on Christian Miller this morning, I think. But
yes.
How many can they take? How many guys can Georgia take at this point?
Yeah,
that's the big thing, is there room at the end. So I mean, I think in some points you run into a case of where options drop off for these guys, and then that kind of changes the deck.
Yeah, no question. And I think that helped them with I think that's going to end up helping. We're going to find out that ended up helping them with Amari Abor a little bit is, Texas A&M's talking to, 12 kids for 5 spots or whatever. And Ohio State's talking to 4 kids for 3 spots. And I just think it was a lot easier for Ohio State to sort of prioritize and really focus a lot of energy on just a couple of these guys while Texas A&M and Georgia are trying to figure out their numbers. But, we'll see how that goes. And, obviously, they're both in the running for a lot of guys here. And Shamar did not sign today, right? I guess I should have checked on that because I don't think he did.
Watch out for the fighting Cristobal's.
Right. That, not to get Ohio State fans' hopes up, but, I guess,
he's
they can call him in January, right? I mean, if he's still out there, but I don't think that's happening.
No, I think this will be Miami will get all the nil money from John Ruiz and Marcus Lemonis, and they need Shamar Stewart in the worst way. And I think crystal ball, I would give him a shot here. It will not shock me if he gets Shamar Stewart. So that's one to watch going forward.
Yeah, that's going to be that's going to be, because there's a lot of people he's going to A&M. I have heard obviously, yeah, but I keep, and then it comes out that maybe Georgia was running second to A&M there for a minute, and now I'm like, okay, well, maybe he's not going to Georgia, and then Miami gets Cristobal, and it's like, oh gosh, now where's he going?
Right.
It's just that's going to be quite a game of musical chairs, I guess. But all right, now this will be another position of angst for everyone. Although I think a lot of good news this week on this position is, look, I don't want to sugarcoat this. The linebacker play this year was awful at Ohio. I mean, maybe the worst I've seen it at Ohio State. At least since they had to move a Boren brother back to a middle linebacker, but maybe even going further back. I mean, but good news, CJ Hicks in, Sonny Styles in. I know the whole safety label. I really don't see that. I really think he's going to help them at linebacker. I don't think that's going to be a safety issue. Gabe Powers will sign Friday, make that official.
Yeah.
Did they get enough here though? I mean, I know they wanted Jimmy Rolder. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
Deshaun McCullough would have been nice.
Yeah. I mean, do they need to watch this in January?
Jimmy Rolder. That I was never high on him. I didn't think he was a loss. I love, you're bringing in Jim Knowles and you're going to hand him Sonny Styles and CJ Hicks and let that guy just create it with two dudes that he has never coached before at Duke or Oklahoma State. I think CJ is absolutely a linebacker without question. There's no other place you're going to play him. Sonny, I think, and Mark and I, we've talked about this. I think Sonny is your Isaiah Simmons. If you remember in the playoff game when Ohio State lost to Clemson, when Ohio State was moving the ball early, Isaiah Simmons was an on-the-ball linebacker. He was like an extra D end. And Ohio State was gashing the heck out of Clemson. They had to change their defense totally. Well, they moved Isaiah Simmons 20 yards off the ball as a deep middle safety. We haven't seen anybody at Ohio State recently that could play, on the line of scrimmage or 20 yards off the ball at safety, and not play it well. So Sonny's Isaiah Simmons. CJ is that great athletic specimen at linebacker. Hey, Alabama's playing Dallas Turner right now, and they're in the playoffs with a chance to win it all. I think CJ is going to play next year, Mark. I really do. I think he's physically ready. I think he's smart as heck. He's got the coverage skills from playing cornerback as a younger kid. I'm not going to be surprised if CJ Hicks starts next year. I don't know how you feel about that.
I'd be a little surprised maybe if he starts, at least in terms of early on against Notre Dame. But I think he's going to be in the two deep day one, and I think they're going to get him out there and see where that goes. And yeah, if they get him a series early against Notre Dame and he kind of takes it and runs with it, I could see him busting up that room a little bit. That wouldn't shock me at all if that happened eventually. I thought he got a lot better. I saw him early this year and different player. Looked like a kid who finally understood the linebacker position. I thought, obviously he's played corner, he's played safety,
right.
He moved around so much in high school. I thought this year watching him, this was a kid who has finally really settled in and is no longer just a great athlete trying to become a great linebacker. I thought he just was a legitimate linebacker this year. It looks really good.
Yep.
So, the other guy we have to mention is, I don't know. I think you've agreed with this. I've been skeptical that Gabe Powers can stay at linebacker. And I think that frame is he's going to outgrow the position. Is there anyone who benefited more in this class than Gabe Powers from the Jim Knowles hire? Because I look at that Leo position, I'm like, oh, that's the solution.
Yeah, you stand him up and let him go. I don't think he's a linebacker either. I agree with you on that. And I actually talked to Gabe's dad about this, and he also told me that he probably thought his body would take him to D end. He's not going to be able to stay 225, 230. I mean, before the season started, he was 240 last summer, and then he lost weight for the season. That's not going to happen. And I really like Gabe Powers, but if you look at him as a linebacker, he's not the most athletic guy on the field. But you look at him as a stand-up Leo, then he's super athletic coming off the corner. And I think what Ohio State needs right now, I think they need to get faster and more athletic on defense. And I think that for Powers, I think that's him, as a DN and not a linebacker.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like I said, I think that Leo position makes a lot of sense for him. All right, last position group, secondary. Oh boy. Yeah.
Ouch.
I'll let you go first, Bill. I've got some thoughts on this that I don't know that will be super popular, but I'll let you kind of.
Yeah, I think, landing Singletary, Brooks, Wankpa, and Zion Branch, that's the best secondary in America. Wait a minute. Scratch that. Now you got Jair Brown and you got Ryan Turner. I don't know. It's okay. It's okay. They're okay. I would think Ryan Turner I would have is behind Jair Brown. I know you're higher on Jair Brown than I am. The guy I really like is Kai Stokes, though. And this is not sour grapes to make Ohio State fans feel good because they got blown out, recently. I said that when that kid committed. I think Kai Stokes is really special. My guys in Florida think he's really special. They think he's a center fielder that can cover 9 miles of ground, not a corner, although they think he could play corner. But they think his real value is as the Jordan Fuller guy back there, maybe a more faster athletic Jordan Fuller. So I'm high on Kai Stokes. But, to walk out of here with Brown, Turner, and Stokes is just not good enough, man. Not good enough. And it's not what we thought it was going to be, a few months ago. So work to be done here.
I'm going to jump in really quick with the super chat from Nothing New. Thank you for your super chat. Thank you for helping us keep our sanity, Mark, Bill, and Kevin. Looking forward to the steak event with Tony, LOL. And so am I. So am I. If he sits there and he gets it well done, or with ketchup, or any of that, I don't know. Maybe we'll just have to get him some chicken nuggets.
Yeah. Now he is. The rules have been laid here. I'll let him go medium. There will be no condiments on the table. I will have the waitress remove any condiments from the table. I am not going to sit there and watch him eat a well-done steak with ketchup on it. That's a non-starter for me, and that's just not going to happen. So we'll find him a good cut of meat at Texas Roadhouse or something, because I'm not taking him to a nice place either, because first of all, it's just embarrassing to go to a nice place with Tony, but second of all, he's not going to appreciate it anyway. So
there's just nothing I can add to that. I think he got kicked hard enough there. I'm gonna abstain from here on out on Tony.
Oh, speak of the devil. He's talking to us. Is that a good thing that Jim Knowles is custom working with 3 stars? I'll hang up and listen. All right, now you're getting a Waffle House steak, Tony.
Who let that guy through?
I
thought know. This was moderated.
It is moderated, but he's got the cheat code or something.
In all honesty, I mean, I have to think Jim Knowles is losing his mind just over the quality of athlete he's going to have. I mean, that guy did a great job at Oklahoma State. And that's not to say those guys aren't really good players, because they are. And we may, I'm not going to put it that he couldn't bring some of those guys with him to Ohio State. There's room to add guys. But for Jim Knowles to have, especially C.J. Hicks and Sonny Styles, to be able to create with those guys and do things that, well, to be honest, you can't do with Cody Simon and Tommy Eichenberg. You just can't. Steel Chambers, I think he has to be excited about. So I think the linebacker fortunes are going to change. And I think Knowles is going to look at this linebacker group a lot differently than they were, to start the season.
Yeah, no question. We'll wrap up our little class recap here in a minute and get to questions. I wanted to add a final thought though on that on the secondary. I said I was going to say something that maybe it will be popular. I don't think it will be, but I think, not to pour salt in the wound, I think losing Terrence Brooks today is worse than not getting Zion Branch or Xavier Wampa. I think yes, I'm probably higher on Jair Brown than you are, Bill, but I also view him as kind of that slot guy that,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
he's a more athletic Marcus Williamson who actually played okay this year. He was one of their better guys this year, actually. But so I think he can be a better version of that. But I don't know if he's that guy you put on the outside and say, okay, take away the best receiver. I think he's very much that physical slot guy with great quickness. I think Brooks is not only a great player, it reminds me a little bit of Denzel Ward, and kind of the Denzel Ward we came to know, maybe not the Denzel Ward that got the 30 seconds to contemplate his Ohio State offer at camp back in the day. But, I think he's just a lockdown guy. And I think they've got time at safety. I think they've recruited a lot of bodies there. I'm with you on Stokes. So if you hate what I just said about Brooks, maybe you'll like this. I do think Kai Stokes is definitely the sleeper of this class. And I agree. I think he's going to be a really good free safety. And so I don't view the safety issue as, harshly maybe as I view, losing a Terrence Brooks. I think they can survive what's happened at safety the last couple of weeks. And look, they can survive all of this. I mean, with the transfer portal and, recruiting a little better next year, you can always do that. But Terrence Brooks is, I think, a tough one for them to swallow. And so I know, like I said, I think everyone's kind of up in arms over the safety stuff. I'm not as up in arms over the safety stuff. I'm more up in arms about the Terrence Brooks thing because I think that one stings. But we'll see. Time will tell. You want to get to questions?
Yeah. I got about 25. We'll see how many of them we can get to. I'll kind of jump around with what we get. Z Money 87. Are they going to get another corner?
Well, I think they want to, for sure. I mean, the thing is that we really have to understand is, I think statistics in the past, since they went to the early signing day, show that 75 to 80% of recruits will sign, now. Well, that leaves 20 to 25% of the pool still out there. That's a lot of kids. So, and there's time. You can target guys, still bring them in for visits and sign them. So, yes, I think they want to get another corner for sure. And it could be a 2022 corner that hasn't been on the radar yet. You got to see who hasn't signed. And then there's always the portal. And what that portal looks like today, this is not the final thing. Kids are going to be jumping in that portal, even in February and in March. So I feel pretty good that there will be another corner signed one way or the other. So I can't believe that Ryan Day is, happy, with Jair Brown and Ryan Turner only. So I would say yes. Somebody also mentioned a JUCO guy. You never know. I mean, I think they're going to bring another body in to play corner. I really believe that.
And that dovetails. Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
Well, I think they're going to have to add. I think the one thing, again, I think Bill laid out the numbers on early signing versus late signing very well, and just kind of people have to realize that, we got to see how the dust settles on Ohio State's got to see how the dust settles on Friday and then see what's even left. But the other thing is in years past, before the whole transfer portal thing, what would happen is they would go find 3-star Ohio guy or 3-star Florida sleeper or something like that. And they would fill a quota that way. So, if they wanted to sign, 5 defensive backs and they only had 4, they'd make sure they got their 5th one pretty much no matter what. And that would lead to a lot of reaches. Well, I think what a lot of schools are doing now, especially at you talk about the top 25 type of schools, is instead of doing that and getting a kid that, probably can't play for you, you're going to work the portal. And you're going to say, okay, we missed our number, but we're not going to reach on 3-star Ohio kid or 3-star Florida kid that, maybe flew under the radar. We're going to go find a guy who can play, we know can play, and we might only have him for a year, but we're going to go do it that way versus the late reaches we've seen over the years and years past. And we that used to be a yearly thing. Who's going to be the late reach? And they'd reach on one, and everyone did, Alabama did, everyone did this. Alabama, Ohio State, Florida, whoever. And you're seeing less of that now because you just go to the portal and find someone who's got some college film already.
And you say that, and you're not stuck with them as long because it's a year, 2 years. So it's not this long marriage. It's a short-term thing. And even if it were a longer marriage, everybody's going to the portal these days. So if it doesn't work out, they're going to just bounce anyway. But it still seems to work because, we're going to bring you in for a year. I mean, especially if they're a guy that are already a couple years removed from high school, they come out and have a great year. They're gone anyway. They come out and have a terrible year. They kind of just fade away. So it's not a 5-year commitment.
So, Kevin, what I'm hearing you saying is Elias Ricks is a lock to Ohio State?
What? I think we're freezing. I can't hear you very well. No. Going to the next question, asking with more transfers and spots available, how does the portal affect recruiting of JUCO prospects? Where do they go now?
Well, I think they're in the same grouping with all the other portal kids. I think they're portal kids, whether they're JUCO or transferring from Alabama or Ball State. I think you lump them all together. I mean, when Mark Pantoni makes a public statement today that he's tearing through the portal, I mean, that was pretty shocking to me to see him say. I don't know how you guys, if it flew by you or if you caught that.
I saw,
it was like, wow, like that's a heck of an admission, I thought.
Was that a shot at Terrence Brooks?
I think so. And I think it was like, we're open for business,
Yeah.
Maybe if you're not in the portal, but you think you might want to play for Ohio State, I'm available on Twitter if you want to contact me. I can help you get into the portal and get to Ohio State, So I was shocked by that. I mean, and I thought it was pretty aggressive. I thought it was part shot at Brooks and part we're open for business, boys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you started for, Texas Tech last year and you're pretty darn good, but you don't like going 6-6, we're available. Phone's open.
I mean, maybe they take a look and see a guy or two that maybe played for Jim Knowles at Okie State that might want to jump in the portal.
I think that's very possible. Absolutely.
I loved Nick Saban's comments on the portal, by the way. I know we're probably going back a year or two when he said this, but everyone was freaking out about, all these kids, they're not going to wait their turn at Alabama or Ohio State or Florida. And Saban, I'm sure I'm botching this. I'm just kind of paraphrasing here, but Saban kind of said, well, that might be true, but now I get to go after your best players, basically, now, I'm losing my third or fourth string offensive tackle. I'm going to go get your starting quarterback. It was very much, be careful what you wish for type of thing.
Yeah.
And I think Ohio State needs to get into that mode.
Or Henry To'o or Jamison Williams or I'm Alabama, but I'm looking too.
Yep. Exactly. Where goes one who was one of the first ones in the chat tonight with more of a statement? Our class is not done yet. We will see when it's all said and done. We only have 18 committed at this point, more on the way, which kind of adds into some other questions asking about the Hero Canoes of the world and guys like that.
Yeah, there's room. There's room to sign Hero and Amari Abor and Carson Hinsman, and there's room to go into the portal, and there's room to look at who doesn't sign today, tomorrow, and Friday. So that's the one good thing. There are spots available because you look at Georgia. I mean, signing 49 guys today and still looking at 23 more, not much room there. But Ohio State's got room. So that's the one good thing.
And Ryan Day, I believe, made a comment today at his press conference that said it was going to be north of 20. And sure, there's room to do that. But I read that a little differently. I read that as he knows that he's got a few guys coming. That didn't strike me as, well, we're going to find a way to get to 21. That sounded like he thinks they've got their 20 or 21 already.
They're already there.
And it's a matter of, cherry picking a little bit more after that. So to kind of get into the question I saw posted there, are Hero Canoe and Amari Abor going to be Buckeyes? I think they are. Yes, I do. I was told Hero was going to sign today and then announce his decision on January 8th. And again, I still expect that to be Ohio State. I was told Abor was probably signing this week, but I don't actually know if he did sign anywhere. He's going to announce on January 2nd at the Under Armour game. So he could, in theory, do that and then sign later on. So I have not heard if he, and by sign today, I don't mean necessarily with one specific school. I'm just talking in general. I don't know if he signed today. I just know he's supposed to announce on January 2nd, but I was told Hero Canoe was supposed to sign with his school of choice today and then announce on the
8th. Holy Sal asking, did Ryan Watts transferring affect Terrence Brooks?
Oh, I don't think so. Mark, did you see any connection between the two?
No, and I think I know where this is coming from. Brooks was at Little Elm, which is where Ryan Watts came out of a few years ago, Little Elm High School. But Terrence actually transferred there over the summer, I believe. So he had not been at Little Elm his entire high school career. And I kind of asked about that at the time when he made the transfer, because it was right around the time of his decision. I'm like, well, what type of impact is that having? And my understanding at the time was that he did not have any relationship really with Ryan Watts, or certainly not a strong one, if anything. So I don't think so. I think that was just kind of a coincidence there. They were both Little Elm guys.
Mindy asking, do you see any surprise guys committing? I'd be surprised if it's Kristen Miller, but then again, who knows? I mean, Kristen Miller might end up signing for the Merchant Marines at this rate.
If we see it coming, it can't be a surprise, right? I mean, doesn't No, Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, I think right now, do I know of any surprise coming? No. I think Hinsman is 50-50. I think they're getting Canoe. I think they're getting Abor. But then, as we keep saying, I hate to be a broken record, but they're going to look this weekend and see who didn't sign. And it might be, oh my God, this guy didn't sign. And Ohio State immediately contacts him, sets up an official visit for down the road, and it's going to be a surprise to all of us. I can see that happening. They've got spots open. They've got needs to fill. So it could be a guy that they've never spoken to yet, that they can't believe is still out there, and they take their shot and they swing. So do I know of any surprise right now? No. But I won't be surprised if there's a surprise, if that makes sense.
Well said. No, I like I said, I've been on the Christian Miller's not going to Ohio State bandwagon the entire time. So I'll be surprised if they get him. He certainly wants us to think they've got a shot. So we'll see. I would be surprised. I think that's a surprise candidate, I guess, to answer the question.
Elsu Zabo asking, how do these teams take 28 players in a class? Really, do they essentially kick kids off if they're over the limit? How is this handled?
Ask Urban Meyer how he did it at Ohio State. I mean, you do what you got to do. I mean, this is, you want to win or you want to lose. How serious are you about this? You got to be at 85 by summer camp. So you figure out
start of fall. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, you got time to figure it out, and, it always works itself out. Put it that way. That was why, like someone said something about like Ohio State couldn't go after Elias Ricks because, the numbers won't add up. It's like, are you kidding me? I mean, they might have walked away from Elias Ricks because of character issues, but it wasn't because of numbers. Elias Ricks checked out health-wise and character-wise. They would have went after him hard. And if he put him over the limit, then somebody's going to have to take a walk. So it worked out. That's all, that's all we say. And the way you manage your numbers, it directly affects your win-loss record. So it's part of the game.
Brian Keaton asking, will the coaching stability allow OSU to grab top 2023 DB recruits?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, right now, I don't know that Terrence Brooks would know who would be coaching him, who would be developing him for the NFL if he signed with Ohio State today. I don't know if they could have told him that, honestly. They're won over right now with Jim Knowles. There is a coach has to leave this staff, either voluntarily or he gets, all of the coaches step forward on, not so fast there, Jimmy, one of those things. So I think it hurt them, but get the stability, get your staff finalized. Let those kids know who's going to be coaching them, whether it's Kerry Combs, whether it's Matt Barnes, whatever, but I think it hurt them today. I think it hurt them with Wampa. So I think it's a big deal. So, yeah, get everything stable, and 2023 will be the typical Ohio State class. And, we're talking about poor Ohio State today, and they're going to end up with, the 4th or 5th, 6th rated class. So it's not like this is, a 22 ranked class. So everything will be fine. They're in a tough spot right now, timing-wise, because of the way the D coordinator things shook out. And I think Ryan Day is in a tough spot right now.
Yeah, I think, look, they get this all figured out the first, second week of January. That's an eternity to get your 2023 class together. At this time last year, Jaheem Singletary was a lock to go to Florida, and then he committed to Ohio State, and then he flipped, and he's Georgia. So
yeah, Georgia.
I mean, look at all that happened with Jaheem Singletary between, December of his, between his junior, senior year, and then signing day. There is an eternity. I say it all the time. I think, Bill, you say something similar too, is like, look, Nick Saban starts recruiting in like October. Like, it's just like Saban lets his assistants do whatever they want for a while. And then about maybe October 15th, he probably has them all in the room and says, okay, guys, who do I need to recruit? Do
you remember, I think it was when Ohio State had camp going on. I think it was in June. Everybody was talking about the Alabama recruiting machine, it's over. They had a couple commits, and nothing seemed to be happening recruiting wise. And then fast forward till today, and it's like bing, 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 bam, bam. Like, oh yeah, got the best class again.
Yeah,
okay,
kind of how it works. Yakov 22 with the super chat. I think this is more in reference to King Bronco in the chat talking up the Michigan recruiting class. Rivals has Michigan with 5 players in their top 250, Ohio State with 15 in the top 250. There still is pretty wide chasm between where Ohio State and anybody else in the Big Ten is in terms of the rankings. I've not made it through the composite rankings, and there just seems to be a new service every year, so I'm not gotten through all of it, but Ohio State still seems to have a pretty commanding lead.
They do, and to add to that, I thought Michigan had a really, really good day today, and that being said, there's no way you could swap classes here. They're not even close, and Michigan did close with a rush. I give them a lot of credit. They picked up some good dudes today.
Keon Sab, among others.
Oh, man. Yeah. They got the wide receiver they wanted. I mean, they did really good today, but there's no way their class compares to Ohio State's. There's a gap there.
It looks like kind of how, and I've been saying this for years, what's the difference between Ohio State and Michigan? Why is the talent the way it is? Is it a big talent differential? I say this almost seemingly every year, which is, if you look at the top 3 or 4 guys Ohio State signs and the top 3 or 4 guys Michigan signs, they're usually pretty comparable. But it's the depth of talent that Ohio State signs. And I'm seeing that again this year. And I think the real test is going to be, okay, there wasn't nearly enough time for a recruiting class to process what just happened a few weeks ago, not to open up old wounds for everyone watching this, but, how does 23 and 24 process, what we saw a few weeks ago, which was Michigan, kind of having its way physically with Ohio State's defensive front and really on both sides of the ball in the trenches. And does that, impact 23 and 24 in terms of the recruiting gap? I think that's going to be the interesting thing to watch.
Yeah, and I'm always, and maybe I'm old school and, maybe I need to rethink things, but I'm still not even giving in on NIL yet being that big of a difference that, the people spending money get everybody, and the people aren't involved in it will never sign another kid again. I'm not buying it. I'm still a comfort and relationships guy. And I've been that way going back a long time. I mean, I watched Ohio State get absolutely destroyed in back-to-back championship games under Jim Tressel. And the refrain then was, well, nobody's going to want to come here again. And they signed like the number 1 class right then. And I also remember a day, one of the greatest games I've ever seen in person was Ohio State beating Michigan, the 42-39 game. Troy Smith and Ohio State had 1 million recruits at that game. And I remember people saying, they're going to sign all these guys. Well, I don't think they signed one of them. Scores of games are irrelevant. You better have the comfort and relationship part down. And I don't think Michigan winning one game, I don't think it means anything from a recruiting point of view. If you got the comfort and relationship part down, you're going to get these kids. And I'm going to have to see a lot more before I come off of that.
New England Pats 11. Do we know for certain that Jim Knowles is bringing his signature defense with him, or if he's simply going to adapt our current scheme?
I don't think there's any way that you bring Jim Knowles in and pay him the money you're paying him, and then you tell him how to run his defense. I think they're going to hand it over to him and let him do what he's been doing, the past couple of years and what he's done all his life. So no, I don't think you bring him in and dictate to him what he has to do. But I do think he does want to run that 4-2-5 that Ohio State ran under Matt Barnes. I just think it's going to be run by a smarter coordinator. I think Jim Knowles is one of the best in the business. I think if Ohio State wouldn't have grabbed him, the other schools would have. He's the highest paid defensive coordinator in America right now. I don't think and no knock on him, he's not quite ready yet. Nobody was ready to make Matt Barnes the highest paid D coordinator in America. To my knowledge, nobody's offered Matt Barnes their D coordinator job yet. So to me, yeah, still run the 4-2-5, but now you got a genius running it rather than an apprentice.
Yeah, where goes one follows it up by saying he'll be interested to see how this 4-2-5 works out this upcoming season. So, the good thing is and Ryan Day kind of was asked about it today. They're not going to have to completely change the guys that they're recruiting. They're not going to a 3-4. They're not going to have to put a giant zero tech on the line. They're not going to have to do a lot of things there. So it's what you do with the pieces that you have and that you're accustomed to recruiting versus reinventing the wheel.
Couldn't agree more. I love the fact that they don't have to re-recruit a whole different group of kids. They've got the players in place, to be successful on defense if they're well coached. And for the past 2 years, the coaching hasn't been good enough. And the proof is in the pudding when Ryan Day went out and got Jim Knowles and made him the highest paid D coordinator in football. So he recognized it and he fixed it.
Hardy Jens wants to know if there's any truth to Bank going to Orange Bloods. Maybe thinking some of that national or that name, image, likeness money is going to be going over there to you, Bill.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I never lie to you people. There was an offer made, and it was what I consider a lot of money. But they turned me down and told me that I didn't offer them enough. So I offered to pay them as much as I could, and they said no. So I won't be going there.
El Suzabo again. Day says he wants 8 corners. How many do we currently have on the roster? And, of course, I don't have my roster up in front of me at the moment. Gosh. So I didn't want to ignore Sue's question, but yeah, I know that at times it feels like they're thin, but it's, again, it was because there were just guys that were hurt, weren't able to go. I mean, how much did we talk about Ja'Kalen Johnson? I mean, there were a lot of guys in that class where Denzel Burke was the guy who was able to emerge for various reasons, but, they came off of a very solid class upon Carey's return.
Yeah, and I don't know.
I don't have right at 8. I think they're right at 8 right now, but I think you have to count Brown and Banks in that. So which is pricey right now. We don't know what I don't think Banks can be back. I don't think so.
I don't either. And I'm also hearing rumblings that Cam Brown may be leaving, which I think would be a huge mistake on his part. I think he's such a key for next year. I think Cam Brown is really, really good. And I think if he jumps to the NFL, he's an undrafted free agent or a very, very late pick. But if he can come back and be healthy and be the player that I think all of us think he can play, I think he's an all Big Ten kind of guy. So I think it would be foolish for him to leave. And I'm usually a guy that thinks when you're ready, you got to go. But I don't think Cam Brown is ready. I really hope he considers this decision and comes back, because I think he can be a real key to next year's team by coming back and being healthy and playing like we think Cam Brown can play.
Tony jumping in saying it's 8 with Banks and Brown. So
that's what I thought. That's what I thought. But yeah, so that obviously, again, I don't think that's going to hold up. So, you know, I think the real number is 6 or 7 at this point. So yeah, that's again, I think portal watch there in
Yeah.
They definitely need
January.
to. I think they definitely need to grab one for sure. I mean, just to have, you know, it'll be interesting to see what Jim Knowles' thoughts are on, you know, if you have a couple of corner spots, do you roll guys in, or do you ride with your best guys? I mean, you know, obviously it was under Kerry Combs that, well, you know, we're running, you know, 4 in the back, or 4 in the defensive backfield, 2 safeties, 2 corners, but we've got 3 guys that we feel can start, so we're going to roll through the 3. You know, when this becomes Knowles' operation, what's his thoughts going to be on that? I mean, you know, that doesn't mean you don't want to have 8 guys to have the depth and everything, because we've seen what happens, but you know, maybe he's not going to be as keen on being like, well, we got to sit there and roll 3 of them, you know, during meaningful first half action.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm
No, I
anxious
agree.
to see everything about Jim Knowles. Does, you know, in the negotiation between Knowles and Ryan Day, and Knowles had other options, and we're going to have other options. Is he allowed to bring coaches with? Does he have a say in the coaching staff? I don't know that. You know, that can affect Al Washington, Kerry Combs, Matt Barnes. Is Jim Knowles allowed to bring 3 or 4 guys off that Oklahoma State defense with him to play at Ohio State? I don't know that answer either, but I think these are things that I'm really looking forward to seeing once we get through the bowl game. I want to see, you know, just if Jim Knowles is allowed to hire defensive assistants, and is Jim Knowles going to bring some of those? There were some young guys on that Oklahoma State defense that are really good. So those are things I want to see here once we get through the Rose Bowl.
The question here, or the statement, Devin Brown will probably fit in with OSU much better given the timing of his signing. You know, I'm struggling on the timing of it, of what that has to do there. So if one of you guys knows that, please pick it up. But I think that he's going to be a pretty good fit for them in terms of what they need in that quarterback room. You know, I think that, as you said, with short of getting Drew Aller, you know, I think this was probably, they fell into the best situation.
Yeah, Mark, you want to
Well,
take
I
that
think the
first?
rosters. Yeah, I think the roster. I'm trying to interpret what the timing thing is. If you're talking about the separation from the rest from Kyle McCord, whereas Ewers reclassifies and now he's basically on even footing with Kyle McCord. Now you're coming in and you get some separation there, and maybe if all goes well for Ohio State, you can play in a few games and get some snaps, but then still redshirt, and now you've got some real separation there with McCord. I agree. That's exactly kind of what they need here, is a guy who can maybe chill out for a year or two and then compete for the job in 2 years.
Yeah, I agree. One of the interesting points is, and I wrote this, a while back, is that, well, I just say the name. When Ohio State was recruiting Drew Aller, he was told back in, I'm going to say October, that it was discussed that, Jack Miller was probably going to leave the program. But they also told Drew at the time that they expected one of McCord or Ewers to leave as well. So I'm sure if they told Drew this, I'm sure this was also told to Devin Brown. So I think that gave him that added bonus that he was going to be at worst the number 3 guy and not like a 4 guy. So I don't think it was a surprise to him that either Ewers or McCord left the program. So I don't know if that kind of timing is kind of what you're talking about as well. But
yeah, he jumped in and said that with Mark.
Good.
That's what he meant. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. I think Ohio State, if they told Drew Aller that back in October, that I know they told Devin Brown this before Ewers left, that they expected Devin Brown to be in a room with only 2 other quarterbacks. And I think that made it very comfortable for Devin Brown, to sign with Ohio State.
Of course, you then have the question, Ryan Day, he said today 3 or 4 quarterbacks. He's always said 4 before. I mean, do they go out and pursue a Chris Chuginoff type of transfer portal guy to have somebody who kind of understands the writing on the wall that you're probably not going to be the guy, but you've played elsewhere, you have some experience, you may be the guy that has to come in and pinch hit in that tough situation, especially, Kyle McCord didn't get a ton of experience based on the way the year went. And then Devin Brown is just going to be a mere pup at this point.
I don't think they bring in a veteran. I really don't, but who knows? Ryan Day is going to do what he feels is best for the team, but I think that would be a slap to Kyle McCord that you don't feel he's ready to step in for CJ if CJ's hurt. So I don't think they'll do that, but Ryan Day's going to do what he's got to do. I don't, Mark, what do you think about them bringing in a Gunnar Hoke or a Chris Chuginoff type?
Well, I think, I know they've pulled this off twice, but I think those guys are hard to find if you're Ohio State. It's really hard to find a guy who you think can even play just a small little bit if injuries happen, who also is going to be perfectly satisfied not playing. So, these quarterbacks hit the portal, they're generally looking to start immediately at the place they go to. So these guys are harder to find than what Ohio State has made it look like, I guess, the last couple times they've done this. I also think if you can find one, you almost immediately have to make him 4th string. You don't want to your point about McCord, Bill. I don't think I think you don't want to do the same thing to Devin Brown. Even I think you want to. No. I think you want to prioritize the development of Devin Brown and Kyle McCord. And so if you can find someone who's like, yeah, I'll come in and be the 4th string quarterback and get my, MBA or something, then more power to you if you can find someone like that. But I don't think it's as easy as people think because Ohio State's made it look easy the last 2 times they've done it.
Yeah, I think they stand pat with their 3. I really do.
I'm still kind of going through the questions, trying to decipher a couple of them. Ed Rogers asking, what are the rankings? What are the rankings of the league? Is that a question as in where do, like, in terms of the Big Ten classes? Because I can pull up from one of the services what they have there in terms of that. So give me a second as I work on that.
Yeah, Kevin, I'll go out on the limb here and say that I think the SEC would be ranked the highest, but
maybe he just means I think he means out of the Big Ten. Maybe what the Big Ten teams are.
Okay.
So I'm working on that. I certainly know how one network works better than the other. So I'm going back to Rivals because I know how that is.
Yeah.
They have Ohio State. Go ahead.
The composite would probably be OSU, Penn State, Michigan.
That's the top 3 on Rivals, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Indiana had a pretty good class today too. And
they have Indiana at 5.
Toward everybody else,
5. Michigan State at 4.
Okay.
But so much of what Michigan State's done has been, they're hitting the portal hard again. Yes. That's what Mel Tucker's had to do. Dino did not leave him with a lot in the cupboard. So, and the problem is that if you go so heavy in the portal one year, you're still not necessarily being able to build up the reserves behind it. So you might have to go heavy in the portal and then start weaning off of it a little bit as your high school recruiting gets better.
Yeah, one of the things that really shocked me today as I kind of went over the entire Big Ten, I was stunned that Indiana, because it just seems like, a year ago, they were high and mighty. They were the now team. They're the up-and-comer. Well, this was a disaster for them this year. And I never expected them to pull the class that they pulled. And they signed a lot of really good guys today. This is a heck of a class for Tom Allen. And I hadn't really been paying attention lately to see who they were getting. And when I saw them with the class they pulled, I was shocked. Mark, did you notice Indiana at all?
If you would have asked me where Indiana finished in the Big Ten just off the cuff, I would not have guessed that high at all. I would have probably guessed something somewhere between like 9 and 11 in the conference. Mm-hmm. And
they had 6 4-stars. Obviously, Desan McCullough led the way.
Yeah,
but they were able to come into Ohio and get Payne, the running back out of Cincinnati. I think that was a pretty good get. They get Nick James out of IMG Academy, the defensive tackle.
Yep.
And then they get a couple kids out of Indiana with Omar Cooper Jr. and with DJ Moore filling out the 4-star rankings. So, I think they did a pretty good job there. And then we can go all the way to the bottom of the league, 14th in the Big Ten, Nebraska. Oof.
Wow. And see, I wouldn't have guessed, I mean, off the top of my head, I wouldn't have guessed that either, because, Frost has historically been considered a pretty good recruiter.
But they're only sitting with 13 guys, and that's not even 13 signees. That's just 13 there. So you know how the numerics work on all that. But even with that, Wisconsin is 12th, but they're sitting with 14 at this point. And I don't think that we've ever sat there and said that Paul Christ is somebody that's pulling in a bunch of 4s and 5s. They just make the most out of the 2s and 3s that they get.
Yeah, they had the 4s this year, though, with all those O linemen, and they're probably going to, if they don't get Hinsman, they're going to get one of those 3 super linemen that they had in state this year. And that's almost unheard of for those guys with Billy Schrouth and Brunner and Hinsman. If they only pull one of them, I mean, that's surprising.
Yeah.
I'm looking through the questions as I was going on. Here's FDR's great. How many more players do you think Ohio State will recruit in February? Is Ohio State still interested in any cornerback prospects in the transfer portal? I mean, I think that, to jump in there quickly, I mean, obviously Ohio State is going to know a lot more between Friday and January 8th when it comes to some of these guys that may have signed at this point and are keeping it under wraps until their respective all-star games. Obviously Friday could be the day that we learn what happens with Carson Hinsman. So, and Mark touched upon it earlier that Ryan may have tipped his hand by saying in the 20s, the way that he phrased it, that they may already kind of know that they're sitting at 20 or 21. And then you just kind of go from there. And then when I look at the transfer portal, I don't necessarily look at that in conjunction with the numbers of a recruiting class. I mean, everybody still has to be under the 85 at XYZ date, but you're not, I mean, and I know you can go to 28 this year. I mean, I think it's even, the numbers are even more out of whack because of the super seniors that you're allowed to sign 7 above. But we're not looking at Ohio State getting to 30 when you add transfers and everything else, unless we see some major attrition. And to get back to Bill's point, if Jim Knowles is able to bring 2 or 3 guys from that Oklahoma State defense with him, we may see some major attrition.
Yeah. And then I still revert back to that statement Mark Pantoni made to the world today, that he is spending his time combing through the portal. And I think that was a subtle invitation to kids that aren't in the portal, that we're open for business here at Ohio State. So if you're thinking of maybe transferring from your school, get in touch with us and we'll tell you if we're interested.
And again, if they get Canoe and Abor and Hinsman, that would put them at 21. They would have room, I think, to at least maybe pursue a defensive back, maybe take a look at some other positions, see if they can shore anything up, if there's someone out there that makes sense. But I think if they can get to that baseline of like 21, again, I think they at that point say, okay, we'll take maybe an extra body or two in 2023. We're not going to add a reach, a sleeper, whatever in February. Let's go find a 1-year mercenary and go win a national championship next year. I think that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, Kevin is pretty much guaranteed they're getting Elias Ricks. So you've got that.
I've done nothing of the sort. Nothing of the sort. Hey, another super chat. Cameron Gant, how much has your 5-year outlook changed from May, pre-Desan McCullough decommitment, and the avalanche of changes that followed with staff, roster, and recruiting classes?
Well, for me, I mean, yeah, I think avalanche of changes is probably pretty accurate. I keep doing these projected classes. I love doing them, even though they're going to be not accurate. But I love doing them. But I mean, when you were looking at, Deshaun McCullough around the time he was committed, I had Keontae Goodwin as a lock to Ohio State. I had Ernest Green as a lock. I had Wampka in the class. I had Zion Branch in the class. Jaheem Singletary was still committed. They were chasing Will Johnson, Damani, Harris. I mean, it looks totally different right now. I have to be honest. I mean, they did not sign the people today I thought they were going to sign, but that's more of a 1-year outlook. The 5-year outlook, I think, is still strong for Ohio State. I mean, they lost to Michigan. It happened. That thing was not going to go on for the next 20 years. But I think when you look 5 years down the road, you now have a competent defensive coordinator that you haven't had since Jeff Hafley walked out the door. And they're still Ohio State. They're still going to be signing guys. I know everybody else is involved in NIL, and Ohio State refuses to. So they're going to only get 2 stars from now on. But I think the 5-year outlook is amazing. They're still going to dominate the Big Ten. The gap is not closed in terms of talent. I think Ohio State, I think the coaching let them down a little bit this year on the defensive side of the ball. Ryan Day, I think, agrees with me, and that's why he did what he did. And I think the 5-year outlook is Ohio State is right there with Georgia and Bama and, Notre Dame and the rest of them. I think they're right. They haven't slipped.
Yeah, they're certainly, well positioned here. Ryan Day has established himself as a kind of a QB guru. So they're, we always expect them to be strong at quarterback. And if you're strong at quarterback, I mean, that can cover up for a lot. But, they have strong recruiters at the skill positions with Hartline and Tony Alford. So I think the cupboard's well stocked. And then even you look at Larry Johnson. Is he going to be here in 5 years? No, I would be shocked. But if you look at let's say I guess it could only be a few weeks left. But let's be somewhat optimistic here and say he's got another year in him. He's leaving the next guy with a lot to work with. And so what they're doing at linebacker right now, I think is really good. And so I think to your point, Bill, if Jim Knowles works out, which I expect him to, I was very impressed with him this year. There's no reason to think they're not right there in the playoff top 5 every year moving forward, just like they have been. But it's not always. I think it was a little more magnified this year, but I think most years, if you go back and look at what a mock, recruiting class is looking like in April, and then fast forward 8 months, I think almost every year it looks quite a bit different than what people think, a year out. Again, I think maybe there was probably more chaos this year than normal with just all that's going on that's caused that, no visits, the COVID restrictions, the coaching changes, coaching uncertainty, so much going on. But, my 5-year outlook is still very good as well.
Nothing New with another super chat. Thank you, Nothing New. Doing what I can for Ohio State's NIL strategy, whatever that might be at the moment. So here's my contribution. Go Bucks.
Now, if this guy had done that yesterday, Ohio State would have got Travis Hunter today.
I mean, just
that
talking about the world.
Yeah, that might get you a preferred walk-on long snapper from Darby or something.
The world has changed, certainly with
it's a start.
With the deal that Travis Hunter and Penn Gaming, Barstool, whatever, and the flip over to Florida State, and I watched that video online, the live video of where he threw the hats and whatnot. Of course, it brings up the question: does he stay at Jackson State more than a year? I mean,
does Deion stay there more than a year?
Well, I'll tell you where he's not going: Florida State right now. They hate him at this moment.
He did his job.
Mindy's asked this question. I promised her I would get to it. Do you think Jack Sawyer could play the Leo role?
Absolutely. Love to see him in that role. I just love, or on the other side, I don't care what he does. I want to see him, in the Jim Knowles competently coached defense. Not a knock on Larry Johnson. Larry Johnson's got to do what the D coordinators want him to do with that unit. But, Combs and Barnes were not. Nobody's coming after him right now. They're out there. Is Georgia going to hand lost Dean Lanning? Are they going to hand that defense over to Combs or Barnes? I don't think so. You got a guy in Jim Knowles that could conceivably coach for Nick Saban or coach for Kirby Smart. You got one of the best, and they haven't had one of the best for the last 2 years. So, turn Jack Sawyer loose.
Yeah, I mean, he could play either of those spots, but I think it makes most sense to play him at the Leo, and that allows, I think, JT Tuimoloau to play over on the other side at the strong side, because I don't think JT can play the Leo.
No. And Mark, do you think Zach Harrison leaves?
I do. To be honest, I probably wouldn't advise it, but I think he's going to be such a combine freak that, and I know people were hard on him during his time here, but he flashed just enough that I think combine numbers, some team's going to look at the combine numbers, some team's going to see those 5 or 10 best plays on film and be like, I can pull that out of him, because that's one thing. Coaches, if they see just a sliver of talent, they think they can pull that out of him consistently.
What's the lowest he gets drafted? What's the lowest? Like 40, 35, 40.
I think it slips further than that. I mean, I think the doomsday scenario. I think the doomsday scenario is like 3rd round.
Really? You think he'd go that low?
I think it's possible, but I look. I watched Taco Charlton do nothing at Michigan for 3 years, put a couple of good games together, and then Dallas takes him like in the top 30 somewhere, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, but that's the Jerry Jones effect.
Taco, look, I've known Taco since he was in 8th grade, so I'm not coming from a bad place here. I really like. He's a great kid. I watched Taco Charlton play football for 8 years, and 7 of them were non-productive football seasons. He was never productive at Pickerington Central. He wasn't productive at Michigan for 3 years.
He was a basketball player. He wanted to play basketball.
Yeah, no doubt. And he has a couple good games at Michigan, and it's like, here, take Jerry Jones, take my money. It's like, okay. I mean, so could Zach get the same treatment? Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, how shocked would you have been when Zach was a senior if I would have told you that my prediction is that Zach in 3 years at Ohio State is far better against the run than he is as a pass rusher, because that's what he was the last 3 years. Far better than I ever thought he would be against the run, and nothing as a pass rusher. I mean, not really good. Who would have saw that?
That was a little interesting. He was always, I think, stronger than people realize. I know his coach, Zeb pretty well too.
Great. Yes.
But he would tell me, like, look, everyone thinks he's like this lanky, like needs to fill out kid. He's like, dude, he's in here. He's our strongest kid in the weight room. He bench presses, 315 pounds. So in that sense, I guess we maybe shouldn't have been as surprised as we are. But in the other sense, I think the knock on him was, is he physical enough? And obviously that's not been the problem. He is physical enough. I just don't know that. I don't know that he's maybe as fluid as he needs to be. I don't know that he bends as well as he needs to bend. We see some of these guys, they get about 2 inches off the ground coming around the corner, and I just don't know if Zach can do that.
He was rarely the first guy off the ball, which shocks me, because I always thought the ball would be snapped and he would be the blur. He rarely was that.
And he had like superhuman almost track times in high school, given his size.
Right.
But I guess, I just would read the times. I never went to a track meet of his or anything, but you would think he would be pretty good off the blocks to run the times he does. And the fact that maybe he wasn't good off the blocks and was still running those 200-meter times he was running is kind of amazing.
Well, I'm going to jump to another question that's a complete curveball here. Could we add a quarterback to the 23 class?
Oh, they have to. Yeah, absolutely. In my opinion, absolutely. You add one.
They've got to do something. So either transfer portal, 23 quarterback, let's put the cart before the horse here. But, Jayden Davis, I believe was held back at one point in like middle school. So I believe Jayden Davis is essentially going to be, an 18-year-old junior. And so there's been some talk there about, would he reclassify? And given that the 23 quarterback class doesn't really have a guy yet that they're like zeroed in on that I think they've got this great chance with, I would be trying to kill two birds with one stone and just get Jayden Davis to reclassify. I'm like, dude, come in a year early. Depth chart, it's going to be setting up nice. Stroud, going to be out of there. It's going to be, there's only be a couple guys in there. We'll have an open competition. And, Kyle McCord is moving along pretty quickly. So, that would be my play right now. But yeah, they're going to have to add a body in the next 12 months.
Eric Braun, he had a question that he was one I was trying to decipher, and he clarified it. I thought this is what he meant, but I didn't want to put words in his mouth. I meant to ask Mark if landing AJ Harris in a few weeks would take the sting off of Brooks, because he thinks we've got him for 23. Wink, wink.
Well, look, I think AJ's a stud. I think he's a 5-star kid. I think he's, again, he's the prototype guy that we've seen come through Ohio State over the years. And yes, I think now here's, again, we're talking about Larry Johnson. Is he going to retire? Is Kerry Combs back? I think he kind of needs to be, or else you better find someone who can recruit, jokes aside about what happened today with Brooks. But, if Combs is retained, I think they're getting AJ Harris. If Combs is not retained, I think whoever is brought in is going to have to really hit the ground running. So that's definitely going to be an obstacle for them if Combs isn't back.
Yeah, they certainly ran into a bit of a bubble when they brought Taver Johnson back. Just was not the same type of recruiter that they had at the position. I like Taver. I've known Taver for many years. This isn't an anti-Taver statement, but it was kind of apples and Volkswagens in comparing their recruiting prowess.
Yeah, the last year of Tabor, I think they only signed Bryson Shaw, right? The only DB they signed in that class.
Well, and Bryson Shaw was more of an Alex Grinch production too.
Okay, yeah. I mean, Tabor and I consider him a friend. I've known him forever, and there's no way to sugarcoat. He didn't do a very good job, and that's just the way it was, And they, in the same year, they lost Jordan Battle, and that was not Tabor's fault. That was when Urban retired, and Jordan really had his heart set on playing for Urban Meyer. So, but there was a lot of, it just had some bad luck, and they had some bad recruiting, and you pay the price for it. So, but AJ Harris, you got to get him. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, and it's just the way recruiting goes. Like, I'm not a big guy. If you lose a guy this year, then you get somebody next year and it takes the sting away. Like, I just don't think I think they're separate entities entirely. It's like when Ohio State lost Jackson Carman, and it's like, oh, it doesn't matter because we got Nicholas Pettit-Ferrer. No, get them both. Nick Saban, he gets those two, plus he adds another one. So that's the way I look at it. You want to be Alabama, then do things the way Alabama does. And, you don't take the sting away because you got someone else. You get them both, and then you add a third. But that's just me.
Guy named Tony Redman asking, who among this class is most likely to have a Denzel Burke-like season?
I'm going to say C.J. Hicks and cut in front of Mark here. I think C.J. is going to play, and I really think he could be almost like what Dallas Turner was for Bama this year, where maybe you don't even plan that he's going to be the starter, but you put him on the field and he does so many good things, like you can't take him off the field. So I'm going to say CJ Hicks. I think CJ's got a chance to make an impact as a freshman.
I'll let Mark go next because you guys are the experts. I'm just the talker.
Low-hanging fruit there taking Hicks, because now I've got to figure out who I'm going to take, because Hicks is the perfect combination of ability and opportunity.
Wow. That's why I went first.
Yeah. Gosh, if I stick by my theory that we've possibly seen the last of Zach Harrison, boy, I could see Caden Curry working himself onto the field. He can play at least two of the four defensive line spots. I don't know that he can play the Leo, but we'll see. He's done a lot of it at the high school level, playing inside, playing as a stand-up rusher, playing strong side end. He can do a lot of different things. I think he's physically mature. I think he's mentally mature. And I think he plays with good technique. I think he's a guy who will, take to the coaching very quickly. So I could see him coming in and maybe not starting the way Denzel Burke did. So I guess that's kind of unfair, but I could see him working his way into the mix and having a really good freshman year. But Burke might be a little much, but I could see him. I could see him being a guy day one.
Well, now I really don't have anybody left to pick at this point, so I'm going to go completely out of left field because I wasn't talking about Denzel Burke going into the season. I was talking more about Ja'Kalen Johnson pre-injury. I thought Ja'Kalen Johnson was going to be the guy and that the opportunity was going to be there. Well, I look at the safety position, and while they have numbers, I don't see anybody who's just really entrenched there. I think Kai Stokes fits this Jim Knowles, format very well. I think Kai Stokes is going to be the surprise. I think he's somebody, if he comes in, and I had the opportunity, I was at Armwood in Tampa when the day he committed essentially, and we got the interview, and I talked to him for an hour. I mean, most of it off camera, and I was so impressed with him, and he really seems to have that work ethic that I think he's going to come in and he's going to grind and he's going to just make it impossible not to put him out there. So, I think just based on this new Knowles system, which is kind of just pumping up the system that they have and just running it better, I think Kai Stokes is somebody who could do that.
Yeah, and Stokes, coming from that Sumter Armwood program, that's one of the greatest programs in Florida. They pumping guys out. And another thing with Knowles is Jim Knowles is not coming to Ohio State with any preconceived notion of these guys. So he doesn't owe anybody anything. And he's going to turn on the tape and look at some not very impressive performances last year. So I think the slate gets wiped clean for all of these guys. And just because you started last year, that doesn't mean you're going to start this year. So I'm really excited for spring football to watch Knowles kind of put his stamp on this thing from day one. And I love the fact that he's a no BS, militaristic kind of guy. So I think the sound bites from him are going to be great. And I'm anxious to see just how things go in the spring. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to follow, Jim Knowles.
And we don't, I'm probably the biggest Proctor guy, at least on our staff at Buckeye Scoop. There's no way you can just put him in Sharpie next year off that injury. That was a compound fracture. That was not pretty. That may hinder him long term. It may take longer to come back than people think to get up to speed. I mean, he didn't, that was a gruesome injury. So there may be an opportunity there. I don't think it's just a given that Josh Proctor immediately comes back next year in the same type of physical condition as what we saw, this past August.
We're starting to run down on questions right now. FDR is great. Who do you think will be the biggest sleeper recruit in this class? Let's throw it to Mark first. So Mark gets first.
Yeah. I'm beating Bill. Kai Stokes. Yeah.
Oh man, that's bullcrap. Kai Stokes, was that your real answer, or did you do that just to kind of pimp me on that one? Or both?
Little both.
Yeah, I get you. Okay, I'm gonna go with. Wow. Is Kenyatta a sleeper? I mean, he's really not. I mean, I think Kenyatta is really good.
Yeah, I mean, he's a 4-star a lot of places.
Yeah.
So I
would only take 4 stars. They don't take too many guys that aren't.
Well, true. I mean, they only have a couple of 3 stars. But
yeah. I mean, Kenyatta, I think is going to surprise people, and I think Kenyatta can possibly be on the field next year in third down pass rushing situations. So I'd go with Kenyatta as my sleeper since Mark took my sleeper. Trying to think, I mean, I've got none of those receivers. Those receivers aren't sleepers, that's for sure.
I'm going to say George Fitzpatrick. Guys. I'm going to say because nobody's talking about him, so I think in some ways he's a sleeper. I don't think he's an immediate path to the field guy, but I think by the time I think by the time he, gets his opportunity, I think that we'll look at him and say he was a little undervalued in terms of the recruiting services.
Yeah. Very good.
Just here we go. Cash Money. Who have more sacks, JTT or Jack Sawyer?
Sawyer. I'll go ahead of Mark.
I'm gonna have to separate.
I think
you
Sawyer
two.
is more of a sack guy than JTT is.
Yeah, I think the Leo spot, if that's how this shakes out, is going to help him too. I agree with that.
Yep.
Trenton wants to talk a little bit about Caleb Brown. He kind of gets under talked about compared to some of the other guys that are around him.
Well, he's a quiet kid too. That's some of this isn't just about ranking. Some of these kids don't say much during the recruiting process, and so they're not able. We don't talk about them as much because they don't talk as much. So I think that's part of it with Caleb is he's kind of a quiet guy. Here's my only thing there, because I think he's actually a tremendous player, tremendous talent. Hartline has kind of got away from, you remember the old H position, the hybrid, the Curtis Samuel. And Caleb's kind of that type of guy. So I'm just a little curious how they're going to work that in. But I think Caleb is extremely talented. I think you got to find a spot for him. And it's one of those things where maybe they've got to go back to a little more jet sweep action and stuff like that and get him the ball. But I think he's a tremendous player.
Little breaking news here. Eli Ricks will transfer to Alabama. He has gone to social media to put it there. So according to Bill, I'm wrong or something. I don't know, but
oh boy. Well, I'm glad to see Saban will actually have somebody who can play a little bit. I hope Eli starts. Wow. Eli Ricks to Alabama. Okay. Will they play him will they play him here in a couple of weeks, or will he wait till next year? Man. Rich meet richer.
I'm just going through Tony. This is another question Tom and I addressed in Friday's Buckeye Weekly. Plug. Who'll be the first 1,000-yard Buckeye of the signees?
Oh. Caleb Burton.
I'll go Keon Gray's. I was so impressed with him. I just have a feeling about that one.
Well, I guess I'll say, after we sat there and said nobody's talking about Caleb Brown, I'll say Kojo Antwi.
Yeah. Oh, he's good. He could be.
Hey, can Caleb get to 1,000? Can he get 700 receiving and 300 rushing? Does that count?
Yeah.
Never mind. I don't want Tony and Tom getting into our chat and going through the ridiculous process of what constitutes a prediction and what doesn't. I don't want them getting in here and trying to make rules. That's so painful to watch.
Well, is that worth 5 points or 6 points? I don't know. I mean, they won't let me play in their little reindeer games, but I don't have to sleep on the cot of shame either, so I guess it's worth it.
Bill's like, what? I don't know what Bill's probably over there. I don't know what any of you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
Right now.
And I'm glad that I don't.
Well, we've made it about 90 minutes. We're at a high of about 300 people online right now. I'm going to make a final call for questions. We can keep going if we have some more questions. I want to thank everybody who's been part of the show so far. I want to thank all of our super chats at this point. If you're watching us on YouTube, obviously, please subscribe to the channel, hit that bell. All of that really helps us out. It makes it so our show gets broadcast out to more people. More people are able to discover us, be part of the chats. So, please do all of that, right below. But I think we're getting to an end on questions right now, fellas, unless you guys have any final thoughts or things that you're looking forward to over the next few days until, let's just take it all the way out to January 8th and the All-Star game in San Antonio.
Yeah, I don't have really too much to add. Just wanted to, like you guys say, thank everybody for doing this. I think this is the first live chat I've done, and it was so darn enjoyable. I want to do it again. So I'm in. Anytime somebody wants to do another one, it was awesome. And then just to remind people, tomorrow being Thursday, I will be doing my all-day chat on the Buckeye Scoop site. So no change there. We follow the script. It's Thursday, so it's all-day chat tomorrow too, and we're not talked out yet.
I do see a couple of quick things I can hit on. Someone's asking how old Sonny Styles is. I'm pretty sure he's still 17. I think he's not one of those guys who I believe got held back and now they're just catching up by reclassifying. I'm pretty sure he's a true 2023 kid.
Yeah, I talked to Lorenzo Sr. tonight or today at the school, and he didn't mention anything about that. I'll have a story coming with Lorenzo Sr. at some point tomorrow. A question about Emory Jones going to the portal. Would they go after somebody like Emory Jones?
No,
Emory's going to be trying to start somewhere.
Right, and he's a completely different type of quarterback than they're taking right now.
I forget where it was, but I did see something mentioned for him, a possible visit or somebody talked to, and I can't remember where it was now. I'll dig that out. If somebody wants to ask me in my chat tomorrow, I'll try to have an answer for you. But I'm blanking on it now, but I did see his name mentioned.
FDR, great. Will OSU ever be committed to get the type of DT like Warren Sapp, Russell, Maryland? That special kid possesses great power with speed. I like Togia and Garrett, but not Sapp scary.
I don't know if that good, but I really like Mike Hall. And I think this year in the strength and conditioning program, I think Mike's going to be a starter next year, and he's going to be hard to keep off the field. I don't know if he's going to be Warren Sapp, but I think he's got a chance to be really good.
I bring this one.
Think you're talking about the most rare prospect that exists.
It is a unicorn. It's totally a unicorn.
300-pound defensive tackle that can actually move and isn't 50 pounds overweight. There's like one or two of those kids a year, and they're all from the South. So it's not that Larry Johnson and it's not they don't want these guys. I mean, my God, they tried like hell to get Dexter Lawrence, but there's only one or two of them a year, and they're always from like Atlanta or North Carolina or Texas. So, they wanted Marvin Wilson. So it's tough.
Nothing new. Brian Schottenstein just tweeted, "Don't worry, I'll be starting a 5013C nonprofit for the players soon. Details to follow. I'm sure Ohio State compliance and Doug Archie will be interested in all of that." There's certainly
is that a real tweet, by the way? Like,
I think I saw it. Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say no, because it's one of those things where it'd be a funny joke for like what we've seen today, but it also I could totally believe that he did that. So I'm trying to.
I'm buying it.
I would tend to believe so as well.
Yeah, I don't know how to post tweets in here. I don't think that's something I can do, but I thought I saw it earlier as I was going through. And I want to get back to something we were talking about, the rare unicorns of the 300-pound DT that can run. Hardy Jens jumps in and talked about Jonathan Hankins. Jonathan Hankins came to Ohio State, and he, I don't think anybody expected him to have the type of success he came in. He came in many hamburgers over 350.
Yeah, he was way past 3.
God bless him. Where's he now? Oakland, Las Vegas. He's still in the league drawing a check and still productive. But
very wealthy young man.
I think Jonathan Hankins is a bit of a unicorn too. So let me see what else I thought entertaining. Walters enjoyed the hour and a half. Cash money. Will Larry Johnson retire next year? I can't tell you how many times that Larry pulled us aside at camps and said, please stop talking about my impending retirement. I'm still here. I'm still going. So
right.
He said he would go as long as he was enjoying it and as long as his wife was allowing him to do it.
Yeah, I said a couple years ago that, he did have a few years left. So I've never been on the, this is it type of bandwagon, but I think we're getting closer to the end. I don't, like I said, I've kind of always, my stance on him has always been, he's got another 2 or 3 years left. I would say probably not, as far as having, if you set the over under right now at 2.5 years, I would take the under.
Well, Mark, on Larry Johnson, that Caden Curry, Hero Canoe, and Amari Abor are asking both Larry Johnson and Ryan Day if he's going to be there for them next year. How do they answer that?
Yeah, look, Curry is animate that he's getting coached by Larry Johnson. So that it would certainly seem like they're telling all these guys that he's at least going to be there this year.
And Mike Weber was going to be coached by Stan Drayton.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, certainly we've seen how that goes. But we'll see. Like I said, I think we're at the time in Larry Johnson's career now where it does become a year-to-year decision. I don't think it was always that way, despite the rumors. I think there were years where the rumors were that it's a year-to-year thing with him, and I don't think he thought of it that way. It was very clear. I know there's a lot of rumors going around when Ryan Day took over. Well, is Larry Johnson back? And I was able to kind of squash that really quickly and say, no, Larry Johnson will be back. And, so I don't think it's quite that definitive right now. But we'll see how it goes. I think it would be beneficial for all involved if they could get some type of idea of kind of when might be it for him and kind of plan accordingly. And so if he could, if he gives them a 12-month heads up, I think that'd be a real benefit, and they can kind of figure it out from there.
We'll kind of power through the last couple of questions here. We're now at about an hour 40. Robert Thompson asking about Dallin Hayden. I know Bill mentioned something on him earlier, but he wants to know a little bit more of your thoughts on Dallin Hayden.
I like him. I think he's not Trey Henderson, and I don't think he's going to be Richard Young. So, but that's until you put the pads on, man, you never know. I mean, he's obviously talented. He's good enough to play for Ohio State. I just think the guy ahead of him is better, and I think the guy that I think they're getting behind him is going to be better. But in the end, Dallin Hayden will have the final answer on that.
Mindy wants to know, do you think Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave play in the Rose Bowl?
Wow. I've been digging on this Garrett Wilson, and I've had a couple parents tell me that they think he's going to play in the Rose Bowl, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's coming back next year, if that makes any sense. The people I talk to seem to think that no matter what he does, and they don't think he's made his decision yet, that he's going to want to get out there and play with his buddies one more time. So we'll see. I have nothing on Olave. I don't know if either of you guys do.
I tend to think he's coming back to play in the Rose Bowl. He'll play in that game. Cali guy, understands just the enormity of the Rose Bowl, the opportunity to have one more opportunity. Hey, he's very close to 1,000 yards. Ohio State could be in that rare position to have 3 1,000-yard receivers and a 1,000-yard rusher. While that's not something that's going to be equal to what an NFL contract's going to be, I still think that it's something that's important to him. So I would tend to think, I think it's more likely that Olave plays in the Rose Bowl than Wilson, but I'm not ready to sell on Wilson not playing in the Rose Bowl, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
No, I agree that Olave's more likely. And, Chris has always kind of marched to the beat of a different drum. I was shocked when he came back last year. I didn't really, think it was the greatest financial decision. I think these kids can do whatever they want, makes them happy. And they, if that made him happy, then he should have came back. But, financially speaking, I don't know that that was the choice I would have made. But, so I go into this again saying, shouldn't they lock him out of the locker room and be like, Chris, you gave us 12 more games than you should have. Like, please don't do this. You're tempting fate right now, and just kind of let him go. But something tells me he's going to play.
Robert Parker asking about losing Day to the Bears in the future. Ryan Day spoke on that during the press conference. Pretty much shot that down, talked about he loves Ohio State. He loves coaching at Ohio State. Then again, Butch Davis has said things before and then ended up somewhere the following day, but I don't tend to think that Ryan Day wants to make that move. People were coming out and saying, well, based on name, image, likeness and some of this other stuff, wouldn't it drive some, young college coaches to the NFL? I think some guys just fit better in terms of coaching in college. And I haven't even mentioned a guy that we all happen to know pretty well in Jacksonville who's kicking but not butt right now. So and those of you who've been reading the news understand what I'm talking about.
Kicking the kickers.
I'm going to put out, I probably shouldn't even say this. I'm going to get in trouble, but at first I thought it might be an Onion article, but then I read it and then I remembered some stories I've heard about Urban at Ohio State. And I'm going to get in so much trouble if I go too far here. But I remember hearing what Urban's reaction was to Joshua Perry telling him he got hurt, slipping on some ice, walking around campus, and how he couldn't play that week.
Oh, man.
And I'm going to leave that open and see if Joshua wants to come on the podcast and tell that story. I'm not going to tell it for him. But I recalled that story and in Urban's reaction to that and to Joshua telling him that he had slipped on some ice and fell and hit his head and could not play that week. And it all adds up then to what you read about him kicking the kicker. So put it that way.
He never kicked Vrabel. I know that.
Oh boy. Well, we can't end on this one. I'm scrambling for another question. We can't end on this.
Yeah, he'd have went home in a body bag if he'd have kicked Vrabel. Shelley would have picked him up with a snow shovel.
We talked about this a little earlier. James may have gotten on late. Just about Kristen Miller. When is he signing? Is the OSU smoke just drama to build up the decision?
Yes. But he still might sign with Ohio State. He could put out a Georgia edit tomorrow or a USC edit. Kristen is, the guy that figures out Kristen is a lot smarter guy than I am. I'm just sitting back watching the show. Great kid, by the way, too. I really like Kristen Miller. I mean, he was a riot to talk to at Ohio State camp. I think he's a heck of a player. I think he loves recruiting. I think he's going to be sad to see it end. And, the thing is, he is a game player supreme, but game players sign somewhere every year. They still sign at the end of the day. He's going to sign with someone, and they're probably going to be surprised that they get him.
Yeah, I'm going to need to see more Georgia action on his Twitter account before I believe Ohio State's got a shot.
There you have it. So Ohio State signs, a pretty good class. I think people were expecting maybe a little bit more. I mean, obviously some disappointment on Terrence Brooks, but keep it locked into Buckeye Scoop. Maybe we'll know some more things come Friday regarding an offensive lineman, and then of course some decisions will be falling early January between the Under Armour game and I never know what to call the game in San Antonio. I've just been calling it the All-Star game. The All-Star game is the All-American game. So, we have all of that, and then we'll see what kind of comes from there. But any final thoughts after we've already kind of done final thoughts, or are we calling it a show?
I think I'm out.
No, just kind of let us know on the board on Buckeye Scoop, or comment on this later or something if you did like the live format, or if there's a different way we could go about doing it. But I was talking to Bill before we did this evening, and just told him that if you guys do enjoy this, we're happy to do this more frequently, doing it live instead of pre-recorded.
No, the feedback so far in the chat's been great. And again, as Mark said, if you're a member of Buckeye Scoop, be sure to drop your notes on the Ask the Insiders board. If you're watching us on YouTube, just be sure to drop in the comments. And if you're catching us through Spreaker or any of the podcasting channels, send up a smoke signal. We'll get your message, I promise. But, for now, I think everybody is enjoying it. And, I think we're going to call it a show for Mark and for Bill. I'm Kevin. This is Gibbs in the Bank and Noon in this edition, and we will talk to you again here very soon.